Hello, everyone. Super excited to be here. First of all, I just want to give a shout out to the Minds Journal for having me on the show. I'm really honored and I'm really flattered. So today we're going to talk about how to have a social life as a shy and techie introvert. Okay. So there's going to be three parts to this session. The first part, I'm just going to tell you a quick story about myself and how I got into it. The second part, we're going to talk about why do most techie introverts struggle to interact with people. And in the third part, I'm going to give actionable tips for shy and techie introverts to improve their social life. And then later on, if you have any questions, feel free to save it until the very end, and I will do my best to answer as many questions as I can. So first of all, my name is Myke Macapinlac. I'm the founder of Social Confidence Mastery. I'm a social skills coach, and my mission is to help shy and techie introverts improve their social lives. So long story short, I got into this because I was shy and socially awkward myself. So my journey started back in 2003 when my family and I immigrated to Canada. And the first few years in a brand new country was really difficult for me, for a number of reasons. Number one, back then I didn't speak English. Number two, I had massive social anxiety. In fact, I remember back in high school, I was so shy that I actually ate my lunch in a bathroom stall because I was too afraid to interact with people. And also, I didn't really learn how to assimilate. I remember back in high school, my friends would be like, "Yo, man, that's sick," and I and I didn't understand what they were saying. Right? I thought they were, referring to someone who was ill and needed medicine. So I found it really difficult to interact with people, and as a result, I didn't have a lot of friends. I was really lonely and I spent a lot of time in isolation. Not only that, I grew up in a traditional Asian family where I was conditioned to focus on my academics. My parents told me that if I went to school, got good grades, and got a good job, then everything else will take care of itself. So when I was younger, I wasn't given a lot of opportunity to interact with people. That's why I was socially awkward, just because I didn't have a lot of practice when I was younger, right? So long story short, when I graduated, I did get a high-paying job working for an engineering company, and even though I was successful professionally, I was still socially awkward, right? And if you know anything about the industry, right? Like if you work in any type of technical role or in engineering, you're not really required to interact with people. You can basically do your job on your own. So I spent a lot of time in isolation. I spent my entire day looking at graphs, blueprints, and whenever the only time I get to interact with my coworkers was to ask them work related stuff, right? So yeah, anyway, long story short, that's why I was socially awkward when I was younger. And then yeah, frustrated with my situation, I made a decision to finally get this part of my life handled because I was just sick and tired of feeling left out, not having the not having the skill set to be able to put myself out there and connect with more people. I was tired of not having any friends. I was my dating my dating life sucked too. So that's kind of how I got into it. So yeah, that's my story. And now let's talk about why do most techie introverts struggle to interact with people, right? So I've been coaching now for almost 10 years. I've helped hundreds of clients improve their social confidence, make new friends, and yeah, just create a social circle from scratch and even improve their dating lives. And time again, a big reason that I notice why most people struggle socially is because it's very similar to my journey, right? They lack the knowledge and experience to interact with people. And if you think about it, it's not like you learn social skills in school or at home, right? Again, personally, I work with a lot of people from Asia, from India, and their upbringing was very similar to mine, right? They were encouraged to focus on their academics over interacting with people, just so they could have a good job and succeed professionally. But then, happiness in life isn't all about just professional success. You need to know how to have meaningful relationships with people in order to feel more to feel more fulfilled, right? So yeah, so again, a lot of techie introverts struggle socially. Again, just to sum things up, they lack awareness and experience. Number two, their jobs typically are very isolating. They work in isolation, right? Especially now, a lot of people are working from home. I've had clients literally spend almost the entire week in their apartments, right? You can probably imagine the negative impact that would have on your social life if you don't have exposure to other people. And then, yeah, the last thing that I would say to that is they're not required to be social. Like their jobs, they're paid based on their technical expertise. They're not really required to interact with people. So yeah, that's why most techie introverts are they struggle socially. So now I want to give 5 actionable tips that you guys can implement to help you improve your social life. So the first thing that you need to do if you want to, create more meaningful connections is you have to figure out what kind of friends you want to make. Time and time again, I see this a lot with clients that I work with. They just go out. They go out, they go out to bars and clubs. They think that's the best place to go and meet people. And my answer to that is it depends, right? Like if you enjoy the type of environment, if you like loud music, if you like if you're an extrovert, you just love going out and meeting new people, random people, then by all means go to that, right? On the other hand, I work with a lot of introverts, and if you know anything about introverted people, they have limited energy to socialize, right? They're so in my opinion, that's not bars and clubs are they're not the best places for introverts to go to meet new people, especially if you're busy, if you've got a full-time career. You want to be able to leverage your time and make the most out of your efforts when you're going out and interacting with people. So the first thing that I would suggest is you have to figure out what's important to you, right? Because at the end of the day, mutual interests is the foundation of every great relationship, right? It's so much easier to spend time with people who like the same things as you. So make a list of things that you value and then figure out the best types of events, venues, and activities where you'll be able to connect with more like-minded people who value the same things. Succeeding socially, it's kind of like that saying in real estate, right? Location, location, location. Where you go to meet people makes a huge difference, right? So yeah, be intentional with how you put yourself out there, so you are able to make the most out of your limited social energy. And yeah, you don't waste time going out and meeting people and not having a whole lot to show for, right? So that's tip number 1. The second tip that I would say in order to improve your social life is you got to come up with stories. A lot of people who are not successful socially and they struggle to interact with people. They go to events and well, their biggest struggle is they don't know what to say, right? Or they they can't maintain a conversation. So if that's you, and if that's the case, then make sure you take the time to prepare what you want to say. Because if you think about it, the same topics tend to come up in conversation over and over again anyway, right? So most people talk about their work, they talk about their upbringing, they talk about places they've been to, they talk about events they've attended, and they talk about their interests, right? So before you go out, really take the time to just write some stories that you can share regarding those 5 topics. Also, something that you can do if you want to feel more comfortable at any social event is to research the venue that you plan on going to, and then just do your best to anticipate what most people might be talking about, right? Trust me, I know this sounds like a lot of work, but the preparation that you do ahead of time will really benefit you once you get to the event, because it's kind of like writing an exam that you studied for, right? Back in university or high school, whatever the case may be. We've all been there, right? We go to write an exam we didn't study for, and you're feeling anxious, your hands are clammy. And it's the same thing if you go to a social event and you're unprepared. It's exactly what's going to happen, right? So to increase the probability of you having good interactions and being able to hold conversations better, make sure you come up with stories that you want to share in advance. Okay, so that's the second tip that I would say. The third thing that I would do once you get to the event is make sure you do your best to make a move right away. A lot of people who struggle socially, they get to the event and it takes them so long to start a conversation with people that they end up becoming a wallflower, right? If you've been to parties and you've seen people that are standing in the corner of the room, their drinks are clenched against their chest, and you know what I'm talking about, right? So the key here is to build social momentum, right? Social momentum. So what you want to do is, as soon as you get to the event, do your best to strike up a conversation with somebody right away, because that prevents you from from getting in your head too much. And B, like you warm up socially, right? It's kind of the same idea applies when you're working out and you're going to the gym. You don't just go to the gym and start lifting weights right away. Like you want to ease yourself into the activity. You want to ease yourself into working out, and it's the same thing when you're going to a social gathering, right? Do your best to make a move right away. Approach the first interesting person that you see and strike up a conversation with them. Doesn't the conversation doesn't have to be anything profound. Like that's why you just have to get good at making small talk and stuff like that. And later on, like once you're feeling good, once you're feeling social, then you can move on to the next person, right? So yeah, that's the third tip that I would say is don't hesitate, make a move right away. It prevents you from overthinking, and it builds a positive social momentum, right? That's the third thing. The fourth thing that I would say, so now once you're in conversation, another problem that I see a lot of socially inexperienced people commit is they can't maintain a conversation, right? If you've if you've ever experienced the dreaded interview, conversation where it kind of feels like you're just grasping for straws and you can't maintain a conversation, then you know what I'm talking about, right? So there's three things that you can do to be able to hold a conversation much better. The first one is you actually want to avoid giving short responses. This is a bad habit that I see a lot of techie introverts commit, is they just give one-word answers when people ask them questions. So for example, let's say you're a software engineer and someone asks you what you do for work, right? What do you do for work? I'm a software engineer. You're making it difficult for people to keep a conversation going with you, right? So what you want to do is you want to volunteer more information about yourself, and basically just talk about what got you into your career, right? Make it easy for people to keep a conversation going with you, so that it's easy for them to ask you questions, and it'll give them other it'll give them other topics that you can potentially talk about by giving more information, instead of just giving short responses, right? So that's the first thing that you can do to maintain a conversation. The second thing that you need to do to be able to maintain a conversation is you actually want to avoid using a lot of technical terms. I see this a lot with the clients that I work with in my social skills coaching program. A lot of them are very smart, they're very tech savvy. And when they're interacting with people, they use a lot of technical terms and specific words and phrases that only their coworkers would comprehend. And what that does is it isolates other people, right? Because they can't relate to you. It's hard for them to kind of relate because they literally have no idea what you're talking about, right? So whatever you do your best to explain complicated ideas in a way that's easy for people to understand. And here's a quick tip. If you are going to use technical terms and if you are going to share something that's very specific, you want to use a phrase like it's kind of like, or it's similar to, right? So at that point, you can still share something that's very, specific or technical, but you relate it in a way that other people would comprehend. And that makes the conversation much easier for both people because A, you're sharing your story in a way that's relatable to others, and B, it's easy for people to understand you and they're able to follow along with what you're saying, right? And then the third tip that I would say when it comes to maintaining conversations is you want to ask questions in a specific way, right? So most people have a bad habit of asking closed-ended questions, and these are questions that can be answered with one word. So what's an example for that, right? If you ask someone, do you like the color red? Or do you like your job? Or do you enjoy reading books? Like those questions can be answered with yes or no. And the problem with that is if you do ask that question and if the answer is no, then you're kind of stuck conversationally, right? Like you have nowhere to go. So what you'll want to do is you want to ask more open-ended questions. So instead of asking, do you like your job? You can ask, what do you like most about your job, right? Instead of asking, do you like reading books? You can ask, what do you do for fun? Or how do you like to spend your free time outside of work? Because when you ask those questions, you encourage the other person to share more, right? And I don't know if you're catching any theme here so far with maintaining a conversation. the more information you have to work with, and this goes for both people, the more information you give and the more information the other person has to work with, the easier it is for both people to continue a conversation, just because they just have more to work with, right? So yeah, those are the three things that I would say for maintaining conversations. And then the last thing that I would say is, as far as improving socially, is you have to get good at following up with people. I hear this problem a lot with the clients that I work with. They say that, like, they have a lot of acquaintances and they don't have a lot of deep friendships. Like I actually read a research before saying that it actually takes 200 hours of face-to-face time to turn a stranger into a friend. And if you think about it, that's about 4 hours a week for 50 weeks, right? That's basically how it works, at least according to the research that I read. So what you want to do is you want to get good at following up with people. So for example, if you're at an event, let's say, for example, I had a client who went to a hiking meetup, and on our call, I asked him, like, did you take anyone's phone number, right? Did you take their Instagram handle, or did you add them as a friend on Facebook? Did you get their phone number? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, how do you expect to follow up with these people, right? So it takes, building any relationship takes time, right? So you have to get good at following up with people, and you have to schedule it in your calendar where you're texting someone regularly, you're giving someone a call. What I like to do to follow up with people is to host an event regularly. Like once a month, I throw a happy hour for everyone that I've met. So I'll invite new people that I've met and my existing connections, and I bring them all together, right? And the nice thing about that is you're adding value to your existing social circle, and also you're adding value to your new connections because you're introducing them to more people. And the nice benefit of that is that's how you get invited to other events, right? That's why for me these days I get invited to so many different birthdays, parties, get-togethers, because I'm taking the initiative, right, to host events and add value to my network. And obviously, like, a lot of them will want to reciprocate and invite me to their get-togethers too, right? So yeah, so those are the 5 things that I would say for you guys to have a great social life. Hopefully you guys implement that and take value. And if you guys have any question, just let me know. I don't know if there's a moderator here, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Hello, Winnie from Sydney, Australia. Linda says, I'm neither shy or introverted, but my husband is. I honestly, I hear that a lot. I've actually had a lot of I've had a lot of wives enroll their husbands in our social skills coaching program, just because like they don't know any better, right? They're too technically skilled. So yeah, I totally get that for sure. Does anybody have any questions? Christine says, what should I do when being an introvert? My business gives so much social exposure, as I find it difficult to manage. So Christine, like, being an introvert, it's a personality type, right? That just means you have to get good at managing your energy. So something that you'll want to do and focus on is, make sure you give yourself the alone time that you need to recharge, and do your best to learn more about, let's say you're going to a meeting, like whatever the case may be, make sure you give yourself the opportunity to research the person that you're about to meet with, so you don't waste a lot of social energy, right? Like going back and forth with small talk. That's why most introverts hate small talk, because they waste their limited social energy on irrelevant stuff. So do your best to do your research before you meet someone, so you can be more purposeful, right, with the way you interact with people. So does anybody have a question? Kurt says, I've always wanted to keep minimal interaction at the office, but it's not that easy. What should I do to be more socially active? What's the first step? Well, Kurt, it's one of those things, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, if you want to build any type of relationship with people, like, you do have to interact with them. That's just how it is. If you don't interact with people, they're going to assume negative things about you, right? That's just, especially at the workplace, right? Like it doesn't take long for you to build a reputation as, the quiet guy or the introverted guy. And once you have that reputation, it's going to be a little bit difficult to reverse that. So you want to make sure that you do make the effort to interact with people, because at the end of the day, especially if you want to advance professionally, it's not the, at least from what I've seen, and also my girlfriend's a recruiter and she's seen it time and time again, it's people with the best people skills. It's individuals with the best people skills that get promoted faster. It's not people who are the most technically savvy, right? So from my perspective, if you want to advance, if you want to get good at building relationships, you have to see the value of actually interacting with people. You can't see it as a chore, because if you see it as a chore, A, you're not going to do it, and B, you're just going to give off that close off vibe, right, when you're socializing with others. So you genuinely have to see the value of building relationships with people. Otherwise, you're not going to stick to it long term, right? And at the end of the day, human beings were emotionally driven. We either move away from pain or we move towards pleasure, and we're a lot likely to stick to something long term if we see the value and how it benefits us, right? So Kurt, that's what I would say. Really take the time to reflect why you want to be social, and you have to see the value of building relationships with people if you want to stick to it long term. So great question. I love that. Any other question, guys? I'm happy to answer your questions. Kylie says, I mostly get panic whenever I'm getting interviewed or during my presentation. I cannot keep my cool. I'm not an introvert, but still, is there any way to avert this? Well, Kylie, that's a great question. And at the end of the day, you just have to take the time to prepare, right? Like, you have to make sure you're not going into the presentation unprepared. So make sure, if you're able to, obviously, like, practice your presentation as many times as you need to feel comfortable. And also, at the end of the day, you have to learn how to get out of your head, right? A lot of people who are socially anxious, they have this belief or assumption that everyone is just looking at them, right? That's why that's called a spotlight effect, where people assume that people are noticing them more than they do, when really, in the grand scheme of things, no one does, right? Because we're all self-centered, and that's just how it is, right? We're all more interested in ourselves instead of other people. And also, you got to keep in mind, if you make a mistake, most people would have forgotten about it at the end of the day. Just think about it, right? Like, think of the last person who did something embarrassing or said something silly in front of you. Unless it was recent or something really bad happened, you probably don't remember it, right? So you have to get good at managing your expectations. Nobody is paying as much attention to you as you might think, which is a good thing, because you're free to just be yourself. You're free to make mistakes, right? And the only way you're going to improve is through practice. Kind of like what I mentioned earlier. Back in 2003, I didn't speak English, right? And now I'd like to think that I can communicate myself well and effectively. And that required a lot of practice. It required a lot of just sitting through the discomfort, right? And going through those difficult moments. It's, again, going back to the workout analogy, the only way your muscles are going to grow is if you challenge yourself, right? Like, you can't keep lifting the same weights and expect your muscles to grow. Like, you need to be able to continuously challenge yourself. So the same ideas apply with your social skills. You have to be able to practice it, keep putting yourself in situations that are a little bit more difficult, and that's how confidence builds, right? And that's how you raise your self-esteem, when you're able to tackle a challenge and come through on the other end. Like, you develop a reputation within yourself as you're the kind of person who doesn't give up when things get difficult, and you're the type, you develop a reputation within yourself that you're the type of person who perseveres during difficult moments, right? So great question. I hope that was helpful. Any other question, guys? You're so welcome, Kylie. Any other question? Any other question? Guys, by the way, if you want more free social tips, you can check out my YouTube channel. It's Social Confidence Mastery. You can also check out my podcast. I've got like over 150 episodes there, where I've interviewed some of the most socially savvy people. So check that out. Check out my blog too. I've got like a ton of detailed articles to help you improve socially. Yeah. Any other question, guys? Any other question? I'm happy to take a few more, help you guys out. But again, if you want more free social skills training, just look me up online, Social Confidence Mastery. I've got a blog, YouTube channel, podcasts. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, all the socials. Any other question, guys? All right, I guess that's it. Short and sweet. Again, thanks again for having me. Really honored to be here, and I hope you guys found this session valuable. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys very soon. Take care, everyone.